Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Brandon, and welcome to Audio Addiction, where you can find the latest album reviews, you can find band interviews, and you can also find our live episodes, which we do every Wednesday night at around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'd love to see you out there. Come hang out with us, come talk music. Again, we try to do a variety of different musics. So, we try to cater to everything. So, if you enjoy anything from post hardcore to, gent to kind of jazz to pretty much everything in between. Um, Nick being the only one who likes country, but again, I digress. But if you like that sort of stuff, come check that out. Also, hit that subscribe button so you're in the loop, so you can make sure that you check out the rest of the stuff that we do. If this interests you at all. And lastly, hit that thumbs up if you do enjoy my content and enjoy this album review that I'm going to be doing tonight. Speaking of which, the album review that I'm going to be doing tonight is Jason Richardson's new record, I. Um, this is actually an Indiegogo campaign from Jason Richardson. He left Chelsea Grin. Uh, I want to say it was definitely a couple years ago now at this point. But he's been kind of silent. He's done a few features here and there, but I was super excited to hear that he was working on new music as well as a solo album, obviously, and uh, just the funding behind that, he got well over the amount he wanted, and I believe it was probably over double the amount that he received from people who donated and stuff like that. And it's cool to see that people do care about that type of music and stuff like that. And it's cool to see that he got a lot of backers, obviously, to make this record because um, this record's insane. Just technically, proficiently, just all of the above. It's pretty much anything that you expect from Jason Richardson. This is no strange. You'll be no stranger to this album. But let's get right into it. So the first track being Omni. Really enjoyed this track. This one was the single that he released, actually being one of the first singles. Um, the cool thing about it is that he signed on one of his good friends from Vale. He did the bass, and they got Luke Collin from The Word Alive to do drums on this record. And um, super excited to have both of them on there, and as well as the massive amounts of features that are on this record. It's kind of insane, and I think it just adds another layer and another dimension to the rest of this record. But anyway, getting back to Omni, this was the first single again that he released, and as soon as it was released, I was super excited to see this track. Kind of has this genty sort of I don't know, kind of like scary sort of vibes to it. I mean, like dissonant sort of vibes to it, and I really enjoyed the pace of it. I feel like this album as a whole, I feel like he constructed it very well. Everything kind of leads into each other. I feel like Omni is a great way to start out this record. And it kind of gives a broad taste of, how the rest of the record's gonna sound, and just the technical proficiency, obviously, that you expect from both Luke, you expect from the bassist from Vale, and as well as Jason Richardson, of course. But again, Omni is a great lead track. It has grown on me. I definitely wouldn't say that it's one of my favorite tracks off the record, just technically. But again, it's another great track, and I highly recommend listening to that one. Track number 2, which is Titan. Um, this track is nuts, and I don't feel like a lot of people talk about it, obviously, because Jason Richardson's the focal point of this record. But I feel like with Luke, that he's obviously in The Word Alive, and he's done other drum parts. More recently, the Icy Stars. He did the drums for Treehouse, and obviously he did drums for this record. But I was super excited to see him do something a little bit more technically proficient. And that's nothing against The Word Alive. I love The Word Alive. I also love Icy Stars as well. But I just wanted to see something different from Luke. And I feel like, he's been kind of restrained in a sense. I mean, I know, like, he can't do that all the time. And obviously, he has his moments in, obviously, The Word Alive. But I feel like he really showed a lot of his skills on this record. I mean, just as much as Jason Richardson, and I mean, obviously you expect that from Jason Richardson, but I feel like Luke did an awesome job, just killing it on the drums, and Titan is no exception. He just rips it on the drums. So if you love, if you're if you're a drummer and you like Luke Holland, I feel like this is the best album you're gonna get out of him for sure. Just in terms of technical proficiency and just overall like song structure. I feel like obviously since it being in kind of an instrumental album, it caters more to obviously the instruments itself. So it was cool to see that him in a different light and kind of like see him in a different band in a different musical perspective. But anyway, getting back to Titan, is probably again one of the craziest tracks on this record, and being one of my favorite tracks off the record, just in terms of just mind-blowing guitar parts. Drums are insane. The bass just really holds it down as well, and it's just crazy. Once you listen to it, I'm sure you'll have the same type of reaction that I'll have. Obviously, being a guitar player, I really, really, really enjoyed this track. Jason Richardson's just a monster on the guitar, and just obviously Titan being one of the best tracks off this record for sure. We'll move on to track number 3, which is Retrograde, and this features Spencer Stiletto from Periphery, and I like the change of pace. I like that he enlisted some clean vocals on this record. I feel like it adds to it again. Like I said, primarily being a instrumental record, I feel like adding vocals into certain tracks, especially being Fragments and Retrograde, featuring Spencer and Lucas, respectively, obviously. But I feel like it kind of adds another layer to the rest of the album. I feel like this has been one of my favorite tracks with Spencer on it, and I do love Periphery, but I feel like just Spencer just killed it on this track, just vocally, and just I feel like it just again adds another layer to this track. Retrograde, I feel like, is one of my favorites. It's definitely a grower. Again, it's a nice change of pace from like the two tracks that had obviously no vocals in it, but I feel like that kind of breaks up the monotony of the record. I feel like an instrumental record it's tough because obviously you want to show your skill, obviously you want to show your technicality, but I feel like he broke it up so that and I think that all has to do with Jason just arranging these tracks. I feel like he obviously knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for a long time, and I feel like this was the best way to arrange the tracks so that you don't get tired of listening to him just shred all over the place. It's just kind of the shreds kind of like in a little bit in the back, and then Spencer's kind of highlighted a little bit more, and I feel like that's a great thing. So I highly recommend checking out Retrograde. We'll move on to track number 4, which is Hose Down. I would assume that's how it's pronunciated. And this track features Rick Graham. He's a popular YouTube guitar player. I don't know if he does I don't know if he's done any albums or not, but I know he's featured on Polyphia as well. And he's just an amazing guitar player, so it's cool to see both of them on there. But this track is probably the most unique track off this record. It starts off like any typical Jason Richard track. It's got the heavy guitars, it's got the bass, it's got the drums, the typical instrumental sort of thing to it. But once it gets to about the 3:15 mark, it goes into this kind of like country lick, and it's cool. Like at first I was just listening to it on first listen, and I was just like, man, this is really weird. But after a while, after listening to it a few more times, it was really interesting, and it kind of breaks up the monotony of these tracks, in the way that again, having a vocal on it or something like that, or something different, or a solo or something like that, or change of tempo. I feel like again it adds another layer to it, and it kind of shows his different technical proficiency in a different light. This kind of has, again, a country sort of lick to it. And then later on in the track, around the 3:55 mark, that goes into this kind of like jazzy sort of like coffee house sort of elevator music style part in the track, and I feel like it kind of, shows his skill. It's not just like, oh, I can just shred. Obviously he can shred, and obviously if you know Jason, he can shred, of course. Um, but I feel like it's showing a different sort of shred in a different light. So that was really amazing to see. As well as Rick Graham, his solo comes in at around 4:35. Amazing, amazing, amazing solo. I really enjoyed his work on that in this track as well. Um, Again, he's another technically proficient guitar player, so it was cool to see two um amazing guitar players on one track. Just just purely amazing. We'll move on to track number 5, which is Mirrors, and that features Nick Johnson. He is also another popular YouTube guitar player, and he has a few albums out as well. He's also featured on Polyphia's one of Polyphia's records as well, and obviously he's no stranger to the game as well. Mirrors is another awesome track. It's kind of got this again kind of dissonant sort of like um scary vibes to it. I don't know what the term, I guess, like minor sort of key to it. Um but again, another amazing track from them. Nick Johnson's solo comes in at around 240. Amazing guitar player. I feel like it adds a kind of breath to the tracks. Really, really enjoyed this track as well. This one not being, again, not one of my favorite tracks off the record, but again, I can appreciate the musicianship and just, just the tracks as a whole. It just shows, again, awesome technical proficiency. We'll move on to track number 6, which is Tonga. I'd probably say this is one of the heavier, probably the heaviest track off the record for sure, without a doubt. Up there with like Chapter 2, and I'd probably say Titan's pretty heavy as well. But Tonga, he actually just released a few days ago. This one another one of my favorites. Again, is leaning more towards that genty sort of vibe to it. But again, I feel like Luke's drums, again, he just kills it. I feel like that's kind of like an underlying theme on this whole record, is that, again, while it being a Jason Richardson album, I think it also is a Luke Holland record, in the sense that we really haven't heard him play with somebody of this caliber, I'd say. And just, I feel like, again, they kind of played off each other, and they highlight each other very well, in the sense that, Jason obviously is very technically proficient in the guitar, and Luke's very good on the, obviously technically proficient on the drums. So I feel like just them two combined just add this sort of technical layer that I feel like other instrumental albums aren't able to achieve. But again, Luke, you killed it, man. Awesome job. Tonga being, again, one of my favorite tracks off the record. So I highly recommend checking out Tonga. It's actually up on his page, so I'll make sure to leave links for all the ones that are out. Also listen to it on Spotify or wherever you can get it. Buy it on iTunes. That'd be amazing. Help these guys out. Track number 7, THOT 2.0. Really enjoyed this one as well. It's actually the longest track on the record. It's about 9 minutes and like 50-ish seconds. But again, it doesn't get stale, and I think the thing with these tracks is that while they are instrumental, most instrumental albums, sometimes it tends to get stale if you don't like add new elements into it, or you don't experiment. I feel like this track kind of encompasses everything, and I feel like this should have been one of the tracks he released as a single, because again, it kind of encompasses the whole record. It's got some faster parts. It's got some, more like slower parts. It's got some more theatric parts in this record, and I feel like it touches on every little aspect of this record. So I feel like THOT 2.0 should have been out maybe a little bit earlier. But again, that's, I didn't make that decision. But THOT 2.0 is amazing. Like I said, it's got really good snippets of pretty much everything on this record. So again, one of my favorite tracks. I wouldn't say it's the top one. I think the top three are Titan, Tonga, and THOT are probably my top three at the moment. Um, while just listening through the record. We'll move on to track number 8, which is Fragment, which features Lucas Magyar. Sorry if I butchered your name. From Veil of Maya and Mark Holcomb of Periphery, obviously. Um, another again, I think it's great that he added vocals into these tracks because again, I feel like it breaks up the monotony of this record. Again, um, instrumental albums kind of have that sort of vibe where it'll get stale, but I feel like this album I can listen to over and over again because it doesn't have that sort of staleness to it. It always has something new to offer me. Lucas, I feel like this has been his best showing in terms of him and Vale. I do really really enjoy him and Vale, but I feel like his vocals are just accentuated in this track. And Mark Holcomb just finishes out the record, or at least this track, starting at the I think towards the end. I don't know what mark. I think it's around the two, not the two, probably like around the three-ish mark. I know it's towards the end of the track, but again, I feel like this one really really highlighted Lucas's voice. He killed it on this track, and just obviously Jason and Luke and the guy from the Veil from bassist from Veil really held it down on this track. But again, I feel like Lucas kind of stuck out more in just terms of vocally and just adding just a different dimension to the rest of the album, or this track at least. Track number 9, Breaking Damnation, features Jackie Vincent of X Falling in Reverse. I've never been the biggest fan of Falling in Reverse, but I know Jackie Vincent is an incredible guitar player. And I feel like he kind of had that kind of heart and soul and Falling in Reverse. And I think if it wasn't Falling in Reverse and he was in a different band, I would definitely be listening to his stuff. But I digress. Jackie's vocal. This track kind of reminds me of like almost like a little bit of a hair metalish sort of vibe. It's got this fast paced, guitar part. And it definitely shows off Luke's drumming skills as well as, Jason's guitar playing mastery. But Jackie's solo comes in around 4:15. Again, he does these awesome sweeps. He obviously knows how to play the guitar very well, and he just kills on this track. And I don't know if that would be. I'd probably say that's up there with being my favorite solo. Obviously excluding Jason, but just an awesome job from Jackie and just Jason and Luke and the bassist for Veil. They just killed it on this track. And I feel like what's cool about this album is it's very different. There's different parts. There's different parts of metal on this album. It really caters to pretty much everything. So I feel like if you don't like one track, I highly recommend listening to the whole thing. You might find something that you enjoy. Moving on to track number 10, which is XV 15. Really enjoyed this track. I feel like it kind of, again, it's a nice little interlude. Sort of, Jason does offer kind of a solo part in this track, but I also feel like it offers a little interlude to the album. I like the arrangement, and I also like just how he arranged the album in general. I feel like it has this nice flow to it. Each track doesn't feel like it's overstaying their welcome. I feel like, obviously the tracks flow very well into each other, and 15 is no exception. And lastly, Chapter 2, featuring Jeff Loomis of Arch Enemy. I wasn't entirely sure which part his solo came on, but I think it's at the 3 minutes and 37 mark. This one being another long track. I don't think it's as long as THOT 2.0, but it's definitely up there in terms of how long the track is. And what a way to finish off the record. I feel like, again, it kind of combines all aspects of this whole record in a nutshell. It's got some fast-paced parts. It's got some parts where, you can really delve in and hear the solo parts. All of the instrumentals, Jason, Luke, the bassist from Veil, they all kill it. And again, Jeff does an awesome job with his solo as well. I hadn't really heard of Jeff Loomis. I've heard his name float around before, but I wasn't a huge fan, and now I have to go back and listen to his stuff because he just kills it on guitar. Um, I like the amount of variety in terms of the different guitar players. Rick Graham being kind of like a shreddy sort of guy. Nick is also a shreddy sort of guy, but I feel like in a different sense. He's more like rock based, which I enjoy immensely. Mark, obviously, you know him from Periphery, and he kills it. I'd say the biggest surprise on this record for me was Jackie Vincent's solo. Again, I hadn't really heard of him or his guitar playing before this point, but again, I feel like he's probably a highly underrated guitar player, and he just killed it on Breaking Damnation. My overall pros of this record is that it doesn't feel like it drags out. It is kind of like a longish album, but I feel like it doesn't overstay its welcome. Each track is really accentuated by Luke, by Jason, by the bassist from Vale. I feel like they all have their own place in the record. It doesn't feel like, Jason's just shredding all over the place. It just feels really natural. It feels like the songs are constructed very well, and really, really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed the plethora of features on this. I feel like it, again, adds a sort of dimension to each track, especially Retrograde and Fragments featuring vocalists on a primarily instrumentally heavy album. I really, really enjoyed that, and again, it kind of breaks up the staleness of the record. I don't really have any cons about this record. I think if you really enjoy instrumental music, and you enjoy Jason Richardson, and you enjoy Luke Collins drumming, and you enjoy, any of the names on here that I mentioned, I feel like you'll get something out of it. I feel like you'll enjoy it. Again, I can't speak highly enough about this record. I feel like he really knocked it out of the park on this one, and I can't wait to see what else he does next. Let me know what your thoughts are, guys, in the comments. I don't know if you guys check this out. Definitely give it a listen. If you're into that instrumental sort of metal vibe, then I feel like this is right up your alley. And even if not, I feel like there's albums. I feel like these tracks offer something different than the quote unquote cookie cutter sort of bands. And I don't think Jason's been that type of person to be a cutter type of person. So again, I recommend this record immensely. Again, Jason, you killed it. Luke, you killed it. Bassist from Vale, I'm gonna find out your name so I don't keep saying it like that and I don't look like a moron, but you did an awesome job as well. And I just feel like it's constructed very well for being just a first album, and I'm excited to see what's next for Jason. Again, if you like that, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts are about this record. Again, it's kind of something different from the status quo. And if you're familiar with Jason from Born Over Osiris, or familiar with him from Chelsea Grin, or any features that he's done, I again implore you to check this record out. It's excellent, and a really good showmanship of both guitar, drums, bass, everything. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Talk to you guys later. Let me know if you want me to review any albums in the future. I know I got Panic at the Disco coming up soon, and I might have a few more things in the works. But just let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.